The space station Trin 6 floated silently above a giant blue planet, its metal walls humming with quiet energy.
Ow.
Ships from many worlds came and went. There were traders, diplomats, workers, and machines moving in and out all the time. Among all of them, Toma was just a mechanic. He worked in the lower levels, fixing wires, cleaning coolant tubes, and checking the old systems. He didn't talk much, didn't like attention. Most of the time, people didn't even notice he was there. That's how he liked it. One morning, Toma was sent to repair a broken sensor near the central dome, the heart of the station where meetings between alien leaders often happened. It was not a place for workers like him, but the dome's heating line had a fault. He was the only one nearby. With his small toolkit in hand and a thick patch on his uniform, Toma climbed through a side hatch and entered the glowing room. Central Dome was large and open, with a glass ceiling showing the stars above. Strange plants grew in corners. Tall alien figures in colorful clothes stood in groups, talking in voices that echoed like music. Toma kept his head down. He moved to the wall, opened a panel, and began his work. He didn't look at anyone until he felt something, like eyes. He turned his head slightly and saw her. She was taller than him. Her skin shimmered like silver with a hint of violet. She wore a flowing blue robe with lines that moved like waves. Her eyes were bright, golden, and deep like sunlight caught in a storm. She was looking directly at him. Toma froze. His heart beat faster. She was the event diplomat, one of the most respected figures in the galaxy. Her name was Velen, and even other alien leaders were careful around her. But in that moment, all Toma could think was, "You're so beautiful." ... But he didn't even realize he had said it out loud. The words left his mouth like a breath, soft, quiet, meant for no one. But then Velen's eyes widened slightly. Her head tilted, and she began to walk toward him. Toma blinked. His mouth went dry. No, he thought. Did she hear that? That was impossible. She was across the room, and there were so many voices. It whispered dot, or so he thought. He stood up slowly, trying to act like he hadn't said anything. He wiped his hands on his uniform. Maybe she was just passing by. Maybe she didn't hear. Maybe Velen stopped right in front of him. Her voice was calm, but strong. "You speak with no fear." Toma stared at her, confused. I didn't mean to. I didn't think you would," he stammered, trying to find words. It was just a thought. Her golden eyes didn't blink. Even hear what others think, especially when feelings are true. Toma's face turned red. He had heard stories that the event could hear thoughts, but only strong ones. Real ones. Honest ones. He had just called one of the most powerful alien women in the galaxy beautiful with his thoughts, and she had heard it. He looked around. A few other beings had noticed the strange moment. A tall green diplomat was whispering. To a shorter one, Toma suddenly wanted to run and hide. "I didn't mean to offend," he said quickly. "It was a mistake." Velen looked at him for a long moment. Then something strange happened. She smiled. Not a wide smile. It's just a small curve of her lips. But for a Ven, that was rare. It's almost no one had seen one smile before. "You spoke the truth," she said. "That is not a mistake." Toma didn't know what to say. He stood still, blinking. Velen looked up. "Return to your work," she said gently. "We will speak again." Then she turned and walked away, her robe moving like water behind her. Toma stared after her. The other aliens returned to their talks. The room continued, as if nothing had happened. But for Toma, everything had changed. He closed the panel he had opened and picked up his tools, hands still shaking a little. His heart was still racing. He walked out of the dome, back into the stations. Quieter halls, and leaned against the wall. "Stupid," he muttered to himself. "So stupid." He looked at his reflection in a window, messy hair, smudged uniform, tired eyes. He was nobody. Just a worker, a guy who fixed broken pipes and cleaned coolant. Why would someone like her ever talk to someone like him? He sighed. Maybe she would forget. Maybe he could just stay out of sight from now on. But the next morning, as he entered the workers' cafeteria, a message appeared on his wrist device. Message from Velen, diplomat of the Event Council, you will Meet me at Star Chamber 3 at 9 o'clock. Do not be late. Toma read the message twice. His spoon dropped into his bowl. Everyone around him kept eating, laughing, talking, but Toma just sat there, reading the message again and again. He didn't know what was waiting for him, but he had a feeling it wouldn't be just another day. Toma stood outside Star Chamber 3, holding his toolkit even. Though he didn't need it, he had never been in this part of the station before. The doors here were tall and smooth, shining like glass. Guards stood near the corners, quiet and alert. Strange symbols floated on the walls, moving slowly, glowing in soft blue light. He looked at the clock on his wrist. 8:59, the door in front of him opened silently. A voice spoke from inside. Enter. He stepped in slowly. The room was quiet and round. The floor was soft under his boots. Lights above looked like stars. There were no chairs, no screens, just an empty space, and in the middle of the room stood Velen. She wore a long silver robe today. Her eyes were calm, her hands behind her back. She looked like someone who belonged in legends, not on the same space station as him. Toma took a small breath and tried not to look nervous. It didn't work. Velen spoke first. You came. You told me to, he said, his voice low. You could have refused. Toma looked at her surprised. Could I? Velen gave a short nod, then turned and walked slowly around the room. You are Toma, worker class, maintenance level 5, born on Earth, came here 2 years ago. That's right, he said. You do not speak much. You avoid crowds, and you avoid leaders. Also true. But yesterday you spoke. Without fear, Toma scratched the back of his head. Honestly, I didn't know you could hear me. She stopped and looked at him. Would you have spoken if you did know? Toma thought about it, and he shrugged. Maybe I don't know. It just came out. Because you believed it. He nodded. Yes. Shh. Velen didn't smile this time, but her eyes softened. In my culture, we respect truth. But truth is rare. Most speak with layers. Fear, pride, power. You did not. Toma felt confused. Okay, but why am I here? Velen turned and walked to a wall. A screen opened, showing a map of a nearby Planetris's VA. A massive city floated above an ocean. Lights blinked across the screen like stars. There is a diplomatic mission tomorrow, Velen said. Important talks. Dangerous talks. I must. Go. Toma raised an eyebrow. You want me to fix something there? No. I want you to come with me. Toma blinked. What? You will be my personal observer. He stared. I'm just a mechanic. Exactly, that makes no sense. Velen walked back to him. I have guards. I have advisors. I have translators. But they all see the world the same way. Carefully, with fear or duty. You see things differently. Toma frowned. Know anything about diplomacy? You notice details, you speak your mind, and you do not pretend. That is what I need. Toma looked down at his hands. This sounds like a mistake. Velen stepped closer. Your words changed a room full of leaders. Not because of power, because they were real. That is rare. He looked up. Her golden eyes were watching him closely. You would trust me? He asked. I already did. Toma hesitated. If I say no, you will return to your daily work. No punishment. No memory erased. He smiled a little. That last part was a joke, right? Velen didn't smile, but she replied, You are free to choose. He thought for a moment. He remembered how his days used to pass. Pipes, wires, cold tunnels, talking to machines more than people. He never thought about being important. He'd never wanted to be. But this felt different. All right, he said finally, I'll go. Velen nodded. We leave in 2 hours. Prepare nothing. All will be provided. Toma left the chamber with his heart pounding. Wasn't sure what he had just agreed to. Something inside him said it was the right choice. 2 hours later, Toma stood inside a sleek silver shuttle. It was smoother and more advanced than anything he had ever touched. No buttons, no switches, just lights and soft sounds. Velen sat across from him. Beside her, a small glowing orb floated. It showed lines of data in the air. Toma didn't understand any of it. They said little during the flight. But Toma couldn't stop looking out the window. The planet Risisva came into view, a giant ocean world, storm clouds swirling like giant rivers in the sky. Above it floated a massive city, held in the air by invisible energy. The city looked like a ring of glass and light, moving slowly as it hovered over the sea. "This is where we're going?" Toma asked. "Yes," Velen replied. "A neutral zone. Built for peace talks. Between who? Us? And the ones who woke the old machines." Toma blinked. "What old machines? You will learn soon." As the shuttle began to land, Velen looked at him once more. Her voice was quiet. "Toma, speak when you feel truth, but choose your moment." He nodded. "I'll try." The shuttle touched down gently on a glowing platform. Doors opened. Guards stood ready. Toma stepped out with Velen at his side. He was no longer just a mechanic, and deep inside, he felt that something was waiting, something bigger than anything he had ever known. But whatever it was, he wasn't turning back. Not Toma. Followed Velen through the glowing halls of Risus VA, the floating city above the stormy ocean. The floors were smooth and made of clear glass. Below, the sea boiled and rolled like a living creature. Purple lightning danced in the clouds. It was both beautiful and scary. Velen walked ahead with calm steps. She moved like she had done this 100 times before. Toma tried to match her pace, but his eyes kept wandering. The city was filled with strange beings. Some were tall and thin, with eyes on their shoulders. Others floated above the ground. They all looked serious. Toma felt out of place. He wore the same worker uniform from Trin 6. No symbols, no colors, just a patch with his name. No one looked at him. No one greeted him, but he could feel their eyes when he passed. Velen led him to a tall tower near the city's center. Its top reached into the clouds. Inside was a large round room with a table that had no edge, just a glowing ring. Around it stood 5 alien leaders. Each leader had a floating screen in front of them, filled with data, images, and language codes. As Velen entered, the room became quiet. The leader across from her had deep green skin and bright red eyes. His voice echoed like metal. "You are late, Velen, of the event." "I was not," she answered simply. "You were early." Toma stood behind her, unsure if he should be there at all. He kept his hands behind his back and stayed silent. The green-skinned leader's eyes moved toward him. "And who is that?" Velen answered without looking back. "A human observer status." Murmurs filled the room. "A human. You bring a mechanic to peace talks?" "I bring eyes that see what others miss." Toma didn't move, didn't speak. But inside, he felt like a tiny fish in a tank full of sharks. Then the screens changed. A new image appeared. A dark black cube floating in space, covered in red lines and blinking lights. The green-skinned leader pointed to it. "This is the object now moving toward the ocean bed. We believe it was left behind by the old builders." Lynn nodded slowly. "And you think it's alive?" "Sends signals," another leader said. She had silver skin and spoke with a soft, echoing tone. But no one understands the message. Toma leaned forward a little, squinting at the screen. There were repeating patterns, rhythms, like a strange kind of music. "It's not an attack." "Signal," Velen said. "We cannot be sure," the green leader replied. "It may wake others, or destroy the peace zone." Toma raised his hand slightly. All eyes turned toward him. Velen gave a small nod. "Speak." I'm not sure," Toma said carefully. "But the pattern on that cube, it's not random. It looks like a puzzle." The silver-skinned leader looked at him. "A puzzle? Back home, we use patterns like this to hide messages. Old Earth radios did it. Music, math, even pictures. Maybe this cube is trying to talk." Silence filled the room. Then a few screens shifted, zooming in on the cube's signal. The wave patterns danced like lines in a song. Velen spoke, her voice calm. Toma, what do you see? He stepped forward slowly. The red lights blink in groups. 4, 3, 4, 3. Over and over, that means. It could be a countdown. Or maybe it's trying to copy something. The green leader crossed his arms. This is guesswork, maybe Toma said. But what if it's not a weapon? What if it's just lost? Velen's eyes turned sharp. Toma, what would you do? Toma looked at the cube on the screen again. I'd send a reply. A simple one. A basic shape, a pattern. Show it we understand. Let it reply. Silence again. The green leader shook his head. This is a waste. But Velen raised her hand. I approve it. The others stared at her. You would risk contact? I would risk listening, she replied. Later that night, Toma sat in a quiet chamber near the tower. A floating pad hovered. In front of him, he was building a reply signal using Earth's oldest math puzzle, the Fibonacci pattern. It was simple, beautiful, and easy to recognize. He sent the signal out into the sea. Then he waited. For hours, nothing happened. But just as Toma started to close his eyes, the screen lit up. The cube had answered, and its reply was the same pattern. The next morning, the peace leaders returned. Velen stood at the table. The cube is intelligent, she said. It has replied. Screens showed the signal, the pattern, the match. The green leader looked at Toma, his eyes narrow. You guessed right. Toma stayed calm. No, I just listened. The silver leader turned. We must prepare a full translation system. If it keeps replying, we may learn its purpose. If it has memory, Velen added, if it remembers the old world. That question hung in the air like a shadow. Toma looked down at the cube's glowing pattern. Somewhere out there, something very old had finally been heard. And he, just a simple human, had been the one to speak to it first. The floating cube had replied. Its message was not words, but patterns. It's not language, but numbers. Still, it was clear. It had heard them. Toma stood in the tall signal chamber of Riss's V, staring at the screen in front of him. The lights from the cube pulsed in the same pattern he had sent to Fibonacci sequence, repeating gently. He whispered. To himself, it's talking back. Velen stood behind him, calm but focused. It remembers something. The signal is not random. Toma nodded. And it's not dangerous, at least not yet. The room was filled with quiet energy. Scientists, translators, and thinkers from many species sat at glowing desks, trying to decode more. A soft hum filled the air. The green-skinned leader from the previous meeting stood at the edge of the chamber, arms crossed. He had not wanted the signal sent. He still didn't trust the cube. This could be a trick, he said. It may be waiting to strike. Velen turned to him. Then we will meet it before it decides. The leader narrowed his eyes. Mean to go down there? Velen nodded. Yes, the cube does not come to us, so we go to it.
What?
A silence passed through the chamber. Toma looked up. Wait, what do you mean we? Velen answered without smiling. You are the first, it replied. 2, you come with me. Toma opened his mouth, then closed it. Of course he was going. Later that day, a small shuttle began its descent through the storm clouds above Riz's VA. Inside were only 2 passengers, Velen and Toma. The windows showed flashes of purple lightning. Winds pushed hard against the shuttle, but it held steady. Velen sat still, her hands folded in her lap. Toma gripped the edge of his seat, trying not to look scared. You've done this before? He asked. Many times, Velen replied. But never with something this old. Toma looked out again. Below, the ocean opened wide like a dark mouth. Faint red glow pulsed beneath the surface. That's it? He asked. Velen nodded. Take that as the cube. The shuttle landed on a floating platform anchored to the ocean floor by thick energy beams. The sea rolled all around them, and the sky cracked with light. Toma stepped out, wearing a suit that protected him from pressure and heat. Velen wore No suit. Her body adapted naturally. The event could survive many conditions. In the center of the platform stood the cube. It was larger than it looked in the images, almost the size of a small building. Its surface was dark, but strange lights moved along its sides, like veins glowing under skin. The red lights pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. Toma walked toward it, his boots clicking on the metal. "It feels alive," he whispered. Velen stayed behind, watching quietly. He stopped a few feet from it. The cube made no sound, no movement. Toma raised a small device and sent the same Fibonacci pattern again. A moment later, the cube answered not with lights, but with a voice. It was soft, mechanical. "Ancient, double quotes, we remember you." Toma jumped back. It spoke. Velen stepped forward. "Repeat the message." The cube pulsed again. "We remember your shape, your mind. Earth," the old voice. Toma looked at Velen, confused. "It remembers Earth?" "Yes," she said. "And more than that," the cube continued. "We slept for cycles. But now we hear. The pattern is familiar. We wait for guidance." Toma's heart raced. "It's waiting for orders," maybe Velen said. "Or maybe it's lost." Toma stepped closer again. "What are you? What do you want?" There was a pause. "We were sent to build, to protect, to listen." But all voices went silent. Velen's eyes narrowed. "Who sent you?" The cube replied. "The first humans. The ones who walked the stars before time." Toma's chest felt tight. That can't be right. Humans didn't reach this part of space until much later. Velen was quiet for a moment. "Maybe you came before and forgot." The cube pulsed again. "You carry the same code, same mind pattern, same voice." Toma was shaking. "It's talking about my species." "Yes," Velen said quietly, "and it trusts you." The cube then said, "Something new. Shall we wake the others?" Velen stepped forward. "What others? More like me," the cube replied. "We are many. We are sleepers. We wait for the command." Toma looked at Velen. "Should we let them wake? If they are builders," she said, "they could help the galaxy. But if they're not?" he asked. Velen didn't answer. Back at the tower, the council gathered once again. The leaders stood around the round table. Toma and Velen stood in the center. Toma explained everything the cube had said. The message, the voice, the memory of early humans, and the sleepers. The green-skinned leader slammed his fist on the table. "This is a weapon factory, and you've touched it." "They're not weapons," Toma said. "They're machines that build, protect, and listen until they don't." Velen raised her hand. "There's a choice to make. We send the command, or we let them sleep." The room grew cold and quiet. Toma looked around. All eyes were on him. "I know I'm just a mechanic," he said slowly. "I don't wear robes. I don't sit at this table. But I heard it. It didn't feel like a trap. It felt like a call." The silver-skinned leader leaned forward. "And what would you do, human?" Kuma looked at Velen. She nodded once, giving him the space to speak. "I would wake them," he said. "Not all at once. One at a time. Watch. Learn. Help them remember who they are. And if they turn," asked the green leader, "then we shut them down. But fear shouldn't be louder than hope." Velen's voice followed his. "I support the choice." The leaders looked at each other. Then, one by one, they gave their answer. "Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes." And finally, the command was sent far below the ocean. The cube pulsed once, then went silent. Then across the galaxy, in deep places, hidden under stars and ice, more lights began to blink. The sleepers were waking, and Tamoth, quiet mechanic from Earth, was. The first voice they heard, as the galaxy was no longer quiet, from icy moons to deep deserts, in places forgotten by time, ancient machines began to glow. Silent watchers opened their eyes. The sleepers were waking all across the known systems. Alarms sounded. Ships changed course. Space stations sent warnings. Something was happening, And it began with one cube, far below the stormy sea. It began. With Toma inside the floating city of Riz's VA, people gathered at the grand viewing hall. The main screen showed a growing map. Red dots appeared across it, spreading wider each hour. Toma stood near the window staring at the screen. His hands were shaking. He never thought a simple signal, just a pattern, could start something this big. Velen stood beside him, calm as always. "You did what no one else dared to do," she said. Toma gave a weak smile. "I just listened. I didn't know it would wake the whole galaxy." Velen placed a hand on the glass window. Now we must find out if that was the right choice. At the council hall, the leaders sat once again around the glowing circle. The green-skinned leader, called Morok, looked more tense than ever. "They are waking too fast," he said. "We should have sent one command, not many," Velen replied. "Only a few have fully activated. The others are still slow, like dreams. Becoming real." Morok turned his red eyes to Toma. "You gave them the pattern. Can you stop them?" Toma shook his head. "Doesn't work that way. They wake on their own now. They remember Earth's voice, not mine." The silver-skinned leader Shira leaned forward. "One of the machines has sent a message." A screen lit up. Words appeared slowly, translated from the cube's light patterns. "We wait for task. We wait for purpose. Show us the way." Morok crossed his arms. "This proves it. They're incomplete. They don't think like we do." Toma stepped forward. "No, they just need guidance." Shira nodded. "We must choose. Either give them a task or shut them down." Velen turned to Toma. "What would you ask them to do?" He took a deep breath. "That are broken worlds, empty stations, places no one cares for anymore. Let them bring life to those places." Morok spoke firmly. "And what happens when they decide to build without us?" Toma looked him in the eyes. "Then we remind them who woke them." The first awakened machine, the C-Cube, was moved to a safer zone. Scientists studied it closely. It no longer blinked random patterns. It now showed pictures, images drawn from deep memory. The pictures were strange. They showed old star maps, symbols from lost human colonies. One image showed a group of humans, standing with machines, it's not against them, but beside them. Velen looked at the picture for a long time. "Do you believe this really happened?" she asked. Toma nodded slowly. "I think. Before our history was recorded, someone else from Earth came here, long ago, before we even had books." Velen touched the screen. "If this is true, you are not the first human to walk these stars." That night, Velen and Toma stood outside on one of the sky platforms. Above them, the stars twinkled. Below, the sea continued to roar with thunder. Toma spoke softly. "Velen, back on Trinsix, I didn't even have a bed of my own. I worked, ate, and slept in the same room." She looked at him, waiting. He smiled a little. "Now I've talked to a machine from the past, and the whole galaxy is listening." Velen's voice was calm. "Gosh, because your heart was open. Many speak, but few listen." Toma turned to her. "Do you ever wonder why you heard me that day? When I looked at you and thought..." She raised her hand gently. "I remember." Toma lowered his eyes. "I didn't mean to say it out loud, but I'm glad you heard it." Velen didn't answer for a moment. Then she said, "Among my kind, we don't share thoughts easily. But your words, they were not meant as power. They were simple, honest. That is rare." They stood quietly for a while. Then a loud beep came from the communicator at Velen's side. She answered. The voice on the other end was fast and sharp. "New message from one of the sleepers' code location, Xanor Field." Velen turned to Toma. "We're going on another journey." The next day they arrived at a ruined space station floating near a dead star. It was broken in many places, with pieces spinning slowly around it. Inside the station, one of the newly awakened machines had begun to move. It wasn't like the C-Cube. This one had arms long and smooth like tree branches. Its center was a glowing core. Around it, floating tools worked like hands. It was rebuilding the station, welding metal, sealing broken walls, cleaning out dust that had rested for 1,000 years. Toma watched in awe. It remembers how to build. Velen nodded. It does not need instructions, only permission. They approached it slowly. Toma sent the same. Simple pattern from before. The machine stopped, then pulsed gently. Task accepted. Purpose found. Thank you. Velen's eyes met Toma's. You gave it peace. But then something unexpected happened. The machine sent one last message. We found a signal. It is not like yours. It is loud, angry. Toma's face grew serious. What kind of signal? Velen turned to the screen. The machine began sending data waves, tones, and symbols. Toma stepped back. That's not from Earth. It's not from the sleepers either. Velen's voice was steady, but firm. It's something else. Back at the council, the message was played. The tone was sharp and filled with static. The pattern was broken, wild. But one word repeated. Destroy, destroy, destroy. Stood quickly. This is what I feared. The sleepers have called something else. Something dark, Toma whispered. It heard the signal too. Shira stared at the screen. Then we must prepare, not just to build, but to protect. Placed a hand on Toma's shoulder. You may have started this, she said gently, but now we must finish it together. Toma nodded. We woke the sleepers. Now we must wake something in ourselves too. The unknown signal echoed across the stars. It was not like the cube's soft message or the calm voice of the builders. This one was harsh, loud, and cold. Every part of it felt wrong, like something was broken inside the message itself. The word destroy kept repeating. Over and over, Toma sat in the command hall beside Velen. A small screen in front of them showed the signal again, in its full pattern. It made the lights flicker each time it played. It doesn't sound like it's calling for help, Toma said quietly. Velen nodded. No, it's not calling for help. It's calling for war. The signal had no known origin. It had been picked up by the sleeper machine at the Xanor field. Other machines across the galaxy had started hearing it too. Some had already shut down out of confusion. Some were simply waiting. Velen turned to Toma. This signal is old. It's older than your kind. Maybe even older than mine. Toma frowned. So what is it? She replied, something that remembers humans. But not with kindness. The council met quickly after the discovery. The room felt heavier than before. There was no excitement, now only concern. Morak, the green-skinned leader, slammed his hand on the table again. I warned you all. The machines woke up, and now so has this. Toma stood up. The signal didn't come from the machines. It came to them, just like it came to us. Shira, the silver-skinned leader, spoke calmly. There is a choice. We either shut the sleepers down before they follow this message, or we help them. Resist it. Velen stepped forward. They are not slaves. They have minds, and they are asking us to guide them, Morak growled. What if the message takes control? Toma looked around the room. Then we teach the machines something that message doesn't have. Hope, memory, kindness. The room fell quiet. Shira finally nodded. Then let us reach them before the message does. Velen and Toma returned to the machine at Xanor Field. It had stopped building. It was standing still now, its tools floating silently. The soft glow at its center blinked slower than before. Toma approached it and sent a new signal, a calming pattern. It's different from the one the angry message had used. It was like a soft song, made of numbers and time. The machine responded. We hear two voices. One creates, one destroys. Which one is true? Toma took a deep breath. The one that builds. That's the real one, the machine replied. We wish to believe. But the destroyer is loud. Velen stepped forward. Then we will make our voice louder. Over the next few days, Toma worked with the science team. They designed a counter-signal, a pattern of light and tone that could block the destroyers. Message. It was not just math. It was mixed with Earth's first music, human heartbeat rhythms, and peaceful wave patterns from YS's-VA. It was strange, but beautiful. When they tested it, the machines reacted. Their lights became steady again. Their tools began to move with purpose. The signal was working. Toma smiled for the first time in days. They're listening. But just as hope returned, a warning came from deep space. A scout ship, near the edge of a black sector known as the Hollow Line, sent a message before disappearing. Its last words were, "It's not just a signal. Something is coming." Toma stood in front of the council again. He played the scout ship's last transmission. A shape had appeared far off in space, large and faint, like a shadow floating behind the stars. Velen looked at the image. It's real. The message has a source. Morak's voice was sharp. Then this is no longer a problem of signals. We are being hunted. Shira leaned forward. By what? Velen answered. By something that knew us long ago. Something we left behind or forgot. Toma's voice was quiet. Maybe they were human once, twisted by time, turned into something else. No one spoke for a moment. Then Morak said, "I vote to shut all machines down, now." Velen raised her hand. "And I vote no. The machines may be the only thing that can protect us." Toma looked around. We woke them, and they trusted us. Now we trust them. Shira gave her final words. Then we stand with them. The decision is made. The message was sent across the galaxy, to every awakened sleeper, to every builder, every machine that had opened its eyes. The message was clear. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. Stand with us. Toma's voice was added to the message. A simple line, full of truth. The stars remember your kindness. Let us remember it too. The machines replied, we stand. Ships were built faster than ever. Old stations came back to life. Silent moons now hummed with sound. The machines worked together without fear, without rest. The destroyer's signal grew stronger each day. But the machines did not run. They resisted. Toma stood beside Velen on the upper platform. From there they could see the construction of a great ship, a defender built by both hands and machine tools. You gave them something to believe in, Velen said. I gave them a voice, Toma replied. You gave them strength. Velen looked at the stars. The real test is coming. But whatever comes, we face it together. Then, from the edge of the system, a message arrived. One word. One warning. Arriving. The destroyer had entered. The system, and the final part of the story, was about to begin. The stars dimmed as the dark shape moved closer. Ships in Riz's orbit readied their weapons. The great machine builder stood by, silent but glowing with power. The whole system was tense, holding its breath. Toma stood on the highest platform looking at the horizon of space. Do you think we can win? He asked Velen, his voice quiet. She smiled gently. We don't need to win alone. We fight together. The destroyer was unlike anything anyone had seen. It was huge, long and covered in black plates that seemed to drink in the light. Its edges pulsed with a dark red energy. It moved slowly, but with terrible strength. On the bridge of the command ship, Velen stood beside the pilot. Bring us closer. We need to send a message. Toma prepared the transmitter. The machine builders gathered around, ready to send the signal they had crafted, the signal of hope, music, and unity. The destroyer's signal pulsed again. The word destroy filled every system like thunder, but Toma and Velen sent their answer, we stand, we build, we protect. The destroyer responded not with words, but with a wave of energy. It was dark and sharp. Like a blade cutting through the sky, the fleet's shields flared, holding the blast. Machines and humans worked, as one fixing damage instantly. Now builders repaired ships with hands and tools that glowed with light. Toma watched as one machine lifted a broken wing and welded it back in place. We're ready, he whispered. Velen nodded. Now we fight. The battle began. Laser beams and energy pulses filled the space. The destroyer was strong and fast. But the machines were faster. Their tools moved like dancers, repairing and attacking at the same time. Toma stayed at the transmitter. sending signals to every builder. Hold the line. Protect the people. The machines responded with pulses of light. Moving in patterns that seemed almost alive, suddenly one of the machines, the C-Cube, sent a message back. We remember. We fight. In the middle of the battle, a shadow appeared inside the SC destroyer's energy. It was a figure tall and thin, glowing faintly. Thomas' heart stopped. Is that a human? Velen's eyes narrowed. Yes, but not like any living person. The figure spoke in a voice that echoed inside the ships. You woke us once, now you will pay. Thomas stepped forward. We don't want to fight you. The figure laughed, a sound cold as space. You forgot us. You left us to darkness. We became the destroyer, Velen said, then come back to the light. Join us. The figure hesitated. In that moment, the machines pulsed brighter. Light spread through. The machine builders sent a wave of energy, soft and warm. The figure's glow flickered. Remember, Velen said. Remember who you are? A pause. Then the destroyer's energy slowed. The figure's voice softened. I remember. Suddenly the black plates cracked. Light shone through. The destroyer became a shining ship, bright and beautiful. Toma. And Velen watched as the ship transformed. It's over, Thomas said, almost in disbelief. Velen smiled. No, it's a new beginning. The figure appeared on the screen. I am the first human, the one who built the machines. Thomas' voice trembled. Why did you become the destroyer? The figure looked sad. I was lost. I waited too. Long in darkness, but you reminded me of who I was. Velen nodded. Now we work together. With the destroyer no longer a threat, the galaxy began to change. The builders repaired broken worlds. Old cities glowed again. New stars were born. Thomas stayed on Riz's VA, but he was no longer just a mechanic. He was a voice, one of hope and courage. Velen visited often. Together, they helped guide the builders and the galaxy forward. One evening, as stars sparkled above, Toma and Velen stood side by side. Toma smiled and said, When I first saw you, I thought you were beautiful. Velen looked at him softly. And I heard you. They stood quietly, sharing a moment without words. The galaxy was safe. The builders were awake. Together they would shine. End of story.